The distress beacon pierced through the silence of Sector 7 like a needle through fabric. Officer Talia Wren's patrol cruiser, the Steadfast, banked hard toward the coordinates, its engines humming with restrained power. 3 years patrolling the fringe had taught her that distress calls this far out usually meant pirates, reactor failures, or something far worse. Scanning for life signs, she muttered, fingers dancing across the holographic display. The derelict cargo hauler Meridian's Promise floated ahead, listing awkwardly, its hull scarred but intact. No human signatures. That's odd. What the scanner did show made her frown. 17 faint biosigns clustered in the cargo bay. Small. Very small. Talia suited up, magnetic boots clanking against the airlock floor as she checked her sidearm, set to stun, always stun first. The Promise had been carrying medical supplies to the colony on Arcturus 9. Now it was a ghost ship, and ghosts rarely left survivors. The docking clamp engaged with a metallic thud. Talia cycled through weapon raised, helmet display painting the dark corridor in thermal green. The ship groaned around her, settling like old bones. And then she saw them. Prints. Tiny, four-toed prints tracked across the dust-covered floor in chaotic patterns. They were everywhere, on the walls, the ceiling, smeared across control panels. Her heart rate spiked. These weren't human. They were barely bigger than her palm. "Command, this is Wren," she whispered into her comm. I don't know what I've got." Proceeding to cargo bay. The prints led her through the ship like breadcrumbs converging toward the rear sections. When she reached the cargo bay, Talia's breath caught. The medical crates had been torn open, their contents scattered. Bandages hung from overhead pipes like festival decorations. Nutrient packs were punctured, their contents dried into sticky pools. And in the center of the chaos, huddled together in a pile of thermal blankets, were the cubs. They looked like a cross between otters and foxes, covered in mottled gray and white fur. Their large eyes blinked up at her with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. One of them, smaller than the others and sporting a distinctive black patch over its left eye, let out a tiny chirp that sounded almost like a question. Talia lowered her weapon slowly, her tactical training warring with an overwhelming surge of protectiveness. "Hey there, little ones," she breathed. "Where's your crew?" The ship's log provided grim answers. The Promise had been transporting a refugee group of Luxari, a species recently discovered in the outer reach, fleeing a planetary collapse. The adult Luxari had died when a coolant leak flooded the main cabin. The cubs, locked in the cargo bay by some desperate parent's final act, had survived for 9 days. "Command, I need an emergency xenomed team and a wildlife specialist," Talia reported, watching the cubs watch her. "I'm bringing them home." That's when the smallest one, the black-patched cub, decided Talia's gear rack looked infinitely more comfortable than the cargo bay floor. She didn't notice at first. Too busy coordinating the rescue, triple-checking life support, plotting the safest route back to Station Kepler 9. It wasn't until she felt the slight shift in weight distribution that she glanced down at her equipment rack. There, wedged between her spare oxygen canisters and emergency rations, was Nero, as she'd already mentally named him. The cub had somehow climbed up, squeezed into a space that seemed physically impossible for his pudgy frame, and fallen into the deepest sleep Talia had ever witnessed. His tiny chest rose and fell in perfect rhythm, one paw draped across his snout. "You've got to be kidding me," Talia muttered. But she was smiling. The other cubs had begun exploring the Steadfast with the fearless curiosity that only the very young possess. They tumbled through zero-gravity sections, chirping in delight. They investigated every blinking button and flashing screen with tiny grabbing paws. Talia spent the 3-hour journey back to Kepler 9, redirecting cubs from critical ship systems while Nero slept on, undisturbed by the chaos of his siblings. When she tried to extract him from the gear rack, he made a sound like a tiny broken violin and burrowed deeper between the oxygen canisters. All right, Talia laughed softly. "You win, buddy." News of the rescue spread through Kepler 9 like wildfire. By the time Talia docked, there was a full reception committee, xenobiologists, diplomats, medical teams, and approximately half the station's off-duty personnel who'd heard about the otter fox babies. Director Voss, a stern centaurian with zero sense of humor, met her at the airlock. "Officer Wren, report. 17 Luxari cubs. Sir, orphaned." They'll need quarantine and full medical assessment, but they seem healthy considering. She was interrupted by a series of excited chirps as the cubs poured out of the steadfast behind her, scampering across the docking bay floor in a furry wave. The assembled crowd collectively melted. And that one? Voss pointed to Talia's gear rack where Nero remained firmly asleep. That one, Talia said, carefully unclipping the rack from her suit, has decided my equipment is his new den. Nero chose that moment to yawn, revealing a pink tongue and needle-sharp baby teeth, before immediately falling back asleep. Director Voss's stony expression cracked into something almost resembling a smile. I see. Well, humans have always had a talent for attracting strays. The cubs were settled into a specialized habitat within the station's xenobiology wing, all except Nero, who refused to leave Talia's gear rack even when offered heated beds, premium nutrient supplements, and the company of his siblings. Every attempt to relocate him resulted in the same pitiful violin-like whine. He's imprinted on you, explained Dr. Yuri Kowalski, the xenobiologist. Or rather, on your equipment. To him, that gear rack represents safety. It saved his life. Talia looked down at the sleeping cub, at the way his paw clutched the edge of an oxygen canister like a security blanket. She thought about the 9 days he'd spent terrified and alone, and made a decision that would change both their lives. Then I guess I'm getting a new gear rack, she said, and that's how Officer Talia Wren became the first human in history to be officially assigned a Luxari partner, even if said partner spent most of his duty shifts napping in her equipment. When asked later why, she'd gone through the mountains of paperwork to make it official, Talia simply shrugged. Someone had to teach him that humans don't give up on family, even the sleepy, freeloading kind. Nero, true to form, slept through the entire adoption ceremony.